Okay, I'm about to try to one-shot this tutorial on how to design and render keycaps in Blender. So I've made some templates here and I've been updating this. So this website might change and the files here might be different over time depending on when you're looking at this. But I'm going to run through the latest thing for like April 2020. So the first thing you want to start out with when you're designing a set of keycaps is you want to get some kind of theme. So I thought that would be fun just to do a Tom Nook theme. It's on everybody's mind right now. So that's the whole idea for this cap set that we're going to dive right into. So we're going to do it using the cherry profile, just like the ANSI layout. So let's see, I'm going to go ahead and open up my folder I have. So when you download that, you'll get it just like a Blender file, and it'll look something like this. When you open it up, and if you've never used Blender before, this will probably be pretty intimidating, but I've tried to make it pretty simple. So I'm not going to go over like the basics of how to navigate, but I will say the most important thing you're going to need to know here is this button up in the top right is the viewport shading. You can also get to it by pressing Z and going to rendered. So whichever way you do that, you want to activate it and you'll be able to see something like immediately that's more recognizable. I say immediately as the load. Okay. So the whole idea with these templates is to keep it as simple as possible to edit the colors, and that's what this is here. This is a shader. So you click in here on whatever one you want to change. So there's four main colors here. There's the modifiers, the alphas, and then the text on top of both of those. So you just click this button here, and you'll be able to change your color to whatever you want, right? You'll be able to drag this out. You guys know how these color pickers work. This over here on the left, gotta make sure you can see that my face isn't in the way. So this is for adding images, reference images. So I'm gonna hit open, then I have a picture saved. This is gonna be the reference image. Hope you can see that. So we're gonna use this by using our color picker. I'm already kind of close just randomly, but I'm gonna click into that, click this little eyedropper tool, and you can kind of sneak a color. And you can edit this. Sometimes that won't work perfectly. Okay, but I think that's fine. Let's make the text, let's just make it white. And you can also put in hex codes if that's simpler. Let's see, what else do we want to do here? And let's just invert these. Make a super simple set. So let's grab this color and let's make it the alpha's text. And you gotta make sure you're clicking on the correct thing here. Let's see, it can be kind of hard to tell, but you see that little outline that'll be around whatever you have selected. Okay, and let's change this to just white. So immediately, oh, this looks like a set, but I can't name it. Anyways, we'll ignore that for now. And if that's all you wanted to do, that's totally fine. You could go ahead and render this. Let me minimize this, get some more space. So the way you would do that is just come up here to render and hit render image, or you can hit F12. But if you're on like a smaller keyboard and don't have that, this is a safe bet. So if you do that, it'll pop up with a new window and it'll slowly chug through the render. I'll show you how you can edit some of the settings to maybe make it work faster. Then I'll go over a couple other customizability things with the actual template itself. So yeah, immediately just starts rendering. Okay, cool. So if that renders like too long, or if you're on like a potato of a computer, which is totally fine, come over to this rendered property, or this output properties on the right over here. And you can see right now we're at a resolution of 1920 by 1080 at 200%. So if you just crank that down to 100%, you'll get a render that is half the resolution of what we just did, and 1920 by 1080. And it should be a lot faster, and you'll just lose out on a bit of detail, but should be fine for most things. Okay, one other thing that you might want to change if you're doing a simple set like this is the floor, which you can kind of see the outline of here, but if you click into it, there's another material, and you can make this whatever color you want. Just something to remember. Okay, anyways, let's see. I don't like that color. Maybe something like that. Oh, well, whatever. That's up to you. So a cool thing about this updated template from the ones I've put out before is you can actually edit the text immediately in it. So I had to make a couple fonts for this, which you can find. I'll have links to that if you just want these fonts. But let's just have enter det. And now If we look at the rendered view, be totally updated. So this also means that you're able to change the font as well. Now, there's no guarantees that the fonts are going to work super well, right? But some people have had success with that. Okay, now that we've covered that, let's go over if you want some keys that are different colors than other ones. So let's say you want your inner key to be a separate color from the rest of the modifiers. Super easy to do. Just select the key that you're wanting and come over here and click this duplicate or this new material button. It will duplicate it. You can see that the modifier is .001, and then you'll be able to change it independently, right? So if we want it to be this blue color, totally simple. Maybe you can find a better color. I forget, we're trying to stick with a theme here. There we go, looking good. And if you want other keys to have the same one, easy enough. You'll just select the one you want to have it, open up this drop down, and then select your new material. Okay. And if you want to do that to like a bunch of things at once, you can select multiple at a time. And then with the final one selected being the one you want to copy the properties from, hit Control L or Command L on your keyboard. And this is how you link things. So you can link the materials here. So these will all end up having the same material. And we'll use that again here in just a second. Okay, so that's all pretty simple, but let's talk about if you want to put your own artwork on it. That's where things start getting a little more complicated. But let's see, you're like a bit more of an advanced user. If you're going to need a vector editing program, because the method we're going to use is importing an SVG and then shrink wrapping it to the mesh of the key, which is how the fonts are working right now. That's what's able to let us update the colors super easily with the material, as opposed to using like a UV map. Okay, so let's say you already have your SVG. If you don't have one, God bless you, good luck. But you just come over to File, Export, and you can so there are some settings, and depending on what version of Illustrator you're on, you'll have some problems potentially. But this has worked for me, just exporting it as an SVG straight from here. There's some compatibility issues that I know people have, but you'll just have to hit the forums if you're having trouble. Okay, so now what we have is a SVG file in our project directory. So let's go over to this layout tab. Now this is just like an easier tab to zoom around with, less things on the screen. I'm going to hide the camera by coming over here to the file, like the scene collection, and just hitting that I. And now the camera's out of our view. And there's a couple other things to note while we're looking at that, is if you're wanting to maybe change the font on just the alphas or something, you can, they're all grouped. So you can come in here and click on this and right click and select objects, and now you have them all selected. So you'd just be able to change one and do that same Command L trick that we were talking about earlier. Okay, anyways, let's go ahead and import our SVG. I'm just going to replace the escape key. So make sure it can be kind of hard to click on them since they're like very close to the cap. But if you are having trouble with that, again, you can come over to the caps and just like remove them totally. And you can remove the floor too if it's distracting. So we're going to select that and delete it. I'm going to bring back the caps and the floor for now, but totally optional. Okay, so the way you import an SVG in Blender is you come up to File, Import, and then Scalable Vector Graphic. So now I'm going to import the logo we just exported, and you'll get something like this. So this will be imported as a curve, which isn't super useful to us initially. I'm not really going to dive into why, but the thing you will need to do is convert it to a mesh, which there's shortcuts for that, but the easiest way I find is just to open up the search and look for convert. So we're converting to a mesh from a curve, because this is a curve right now. So when we tab into that, we have this, and if depending on how much you know about Blender, you might understand how terrible that is, but it's not super useful to us in the way it is right now. But immediately I'm just going to start moving this around and centering it on the escape key. So I'm scaling it with S, and I'm not going to go super into detail about all like the shortcuts and just navigating Blender. There's other tutorials that can help you with that. Okay, so we're just going to center this visually, right? It's kind of hard to get it perfect, but it doesn't have to be. Okay, so the first step to actually getting this on our cap, where it's not clipping or anything, is we're going to extrude it. And you could use the solidify modifier here. That might be a little less destructive, but I've had more success with just hitting E and extruding these to give it some depth. Okay, so we've got that, and now the workflow is like this. You are going to shrink wrap it, but before you do that, you're going to need to remesh it to help with our topology, just because there's a bunch of triangles going on here, and a lot of n-gons. It's just not going to work very well. So that's how the text is actually sitting just on top of the key. And we can look at that by coming over here to the right tab menu again and looking at the modifiers. So you can see it has a solidify modifier, a remesh modifier, and a shrink wrap modifier. And we'll use that same Command L shortcut we were talking about to actually just copy those over here. So I'm copying the modifiers from the F1 to this logo. And you can see it here now. So I'm going to delete the solidify one because we don't need that. We're going to leave the remesh. And if I applied that, I could show you what it does, but it just fixes topology. And then this is the shrink wrap, so you have to pick up a target mesh, and right now it's targeting this F1 key because we just copied it. So you need to hit the X, you can just eyedropper and select this one, and immediately it's right on top of our key, and we can adjust it a little bit more. So one thing that we haven't changed yet is the material that comes default with an SVG. You're just going to have to come down here to the Materials Properties tab and just choose it from the drop down. So what is this going to be? Is it a text or is it a modifier? I can never remember. Okay. So we're going to make it a modifier text, which is what were we using for that? Text modifiers. Okay, there we go. And now when we come into like your rendered view, you'll have your SVG where the escape key is, and you'll be able to render that out. Easy peasy. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, a lot of it, if you're new to Blender, is probably going to be pretty daunting to learn about, even if it's just me like zooming around the viewport. But for the most part, for like a really simple render where you're just changing colors, you're not changing text, you're adding your own artwork, it's really just moving the eyedropper tools around and then just coming up here and hitting render. Okay, I think I covered pretty much everything I wanted to. But leave a comment if there's something I left out or if there's something you want to know. I guess I could go ahead and mention I've gotten some, gotta stop that render, got some comments about adding sub-legends. So that was really difficult to do with the previous template. But with this one now, since this is just a font, you can literally just duplicate this and then just like bring it down wherever you want, and you can swap about the font or call it whatever you want. So let's make that another L key or something, and that's stuck right on top of the key. So it's super easy to do here. Just going to be more tedious, you know. It'll just take time. Okay, cool. Yeah, leave a comment if there's something that I didn't cover that you're just totally confused on, and I'll put a link to a Discord server that people have been kind of gathering in. I like to check it out, and you can probably @me on Discord if you have any questions about the templates. Okay. Cool. Good luck.